Thank you for your support in helping review the student status anomalies for the ESOL students. We're going to be looking at the ESOL roster and a new tab here that says Student Status Anomalies. The goal is to review the students with a current status that is not what we would expect based on their access scores. For example, you may have a student that is listed as currently receiving services. However, we may have in our database the information that the student scored proficient on an access test in a prior year. So it's a little bit unusual that a student would be receiving services even though they've already shown proficiency in a past year on the access test. It may be appropriate. It may be, for example, that you had discussions with the department and with the parents and decided to return the student to services. But we want to make sure that all these anomalies where the status doesn't align with what we think it should be based on test scores, we want you to review those. So that's your action. Your action is going to be reviewing each one of the students where we believe that there's an anomaly between their status and their prior access score results. What you'll need to do is just update a reason telling us why this might be the case or that it should be the case. Or if the status is wrong, you'll have the ability to update the student status and provide additional comments as well. As I just pointed out at the beginning of this video, this is going to be in the Student Status Anomaly tab. It's a new tab when you log into the ESOL roster. And you'll see on that new tab that you've got the current student status. You'll have an area where you can put in a change reason or a reason kind of describing why that anomaly is the way it should be, if it's correct. And then you'll also have the ability, as I mentioned earlier, to change the status if it should be changed, and also to be able to add comments as well. You'll also see that there's a column that says anomaly reason, and along with their proficiency scores. So this is a column that describes why we think there's an anomaly. So for example, this student, Elton John, is currently receiving services. But in 2019, Elton John had a composite proficiency of 5.7, and along with his other scores, we believe should have been proficient. So we think that the system thinks that it really should be first-year monitoring. Same thing is true for Michael Jackson, this second record, who again is currently set to return to services, but we believe should be monitoring. And this is a good example where that's probably correct. He was returned to services. And so again, you'll just be updating the stat. You'll be entering a status reason for each one of these, and you may have to change the student status if it's appropriate. Just so you understand, these are the 5 different anomalies that you'll see. So on that prior screen we just saw here, the anomaly reason. These are the 5 different reasons you'll see. You'll see that we've got records where we believe the student should still be receiving services. So it might be that the current status says that they're in first-year monitoring, but we don't have any access score that shows that they should be monitored. You'll have to let us know. It might be that the student came from another state, and that's appropriate that they're in monitoring status, even though we don't have an assessment result showing their proficiency. And then you'll see records for indicating that the student had an access test that showed proficiency in 2016, and so we think they should be full exited, or in 2017, and they should be third-year monitored, etc. And these would be cases where we believe this is the status based on the assessment score, but in reality, they're set to something else. So it might be that they had an access score showing proficiency in 2017, but they're only in first-year monitoring status, and it's not clear to us why. And so again, you'll indicate through this status change reason either the fact that the DOE approved the change, and so maybe it was in a prior year, and so the reason the student is currently receiving services, even though that they have a proficiency score in a prior year, is because the DOE approved it. Or you might tell us that the student came from another state, so maybe the reason that they are in a monitoring status, even though we don't have assessment results, is because they came from another state. And those assessment results came from the other state, and we just don't have them in our system. Again, that's fine. You'll just let us know that. Or you may decide that the message we have, such as should be third-year monitoring, was right. In which case, you'll change the student status, and you'll confirm that the student status was changed. If these aren't clear, or there's some other scenario, you can always tell us that the reason the status is the way it is just for some other reason, and then you can enter some comments to describe it. So let me go back to the system, and we'll just walk through an example or two of these. So here is somebody that we're seeing this. Let's look at this second one here. They're in second year monitoring status, Fleetwood Mac. However, we see that there's no access score. We don't have a result in any prior year. So we're not sure why they're second year monitoring. We think that maybe they should be receiving services. Again, this might be a student who came from out of state. If you click on the SACID, you'll be able to drill down and see what assessment results we have. And here again, you'll see that the student scored a 5.2 in 2018, but because their individual scores weren't all over the requirement, they weren't proficient that year. 4.9 in 2017, again, not proficient, and same thing with 2016. So again, this is why we're not seeing any proficiency. However, as we described, this student is currently set to second year monitoring. And so again, why are they second year monitoring if we haven't shown proficiency? So you would click edit, and maybe it was right, maybe the student came from another state, and you would simply say, student came from another state. And, if you want, you could say, 5.5 proficiency from Mass in, year XYZ, whatever the year was. And you save it. And now we have change reason entered. So when you first come in here, all your change reasons will be blank. And it's just a matter of going through each one of these. Here's one that says return to LEP service with parent consent, even though we found that they were proficient in 2019. And so, it might be right. Parent gave consent, you reviewed it with the department. And so here you would say, DOE approved the change in prior year. You could say, decision to return to services in 2019. And you click save. And you've indicated what happened with that student. Here's one at the bottom, currently receiving services, even though in 2019 they had scored a 5.0. We can click on the student again to see in 2019 they did have the requirements. So assuming this student had passed the required levels, you could, again, going back to this anomaly list for this last one. So maybe this was a student that you didn't realize, but they should be first year monitored. And so in that case, we could click edit. You could actually change the status to first year monitoring. You could change to let us know the reason that the status was changed. You changed the status confirming that this was actually correct, that they should be monitoring. And you can say, updated to monitoring status and click save. So again, that's the goal. The goal is for you to go through all of these items, make sure that they all have a status change reason. If you have any questions about what reason you should put in here, again, you can always just choose that other one. So here we could say for this one, we could just say, other, and say, spoke to, or parent confirmed return to services. So you can always choose that other option if you're not sure what reason to put in there. But again, the goal is to get all of these in here. And again, you do have the ability to change the status if the status should be changed to anything else. So we're letting you correct these anomalies. So I think that's it. Last thing I want to point out is there's ESOL instructions here. And if you click on the ESOL instructions, one of the things you will now see is an ESOL student status anomalies help document. And this document also walks through what we just discussed. Talks about these 4 reasons as well that we talked about. So feel free to use that document if it helps you. And with that, I want to thank you again for your efforts to review these anomalies and try to get the ESOL database as clean as possible. As always, we don't want you to struggle. So if you have questions, please do call Wendy or Mike, and our information as well is on this the bottom of this form, where you can find out where to email us as well. So that's on the bottom of this help document, which again, you can reach through the ESOL instructions link. So thank you for your help. Have a wonderful day. Take care.